My name is John Ang. I run marketing for LinkedIn here in Asia, based in Singapore. I've got my colleagues here, Atul Hakasaka, who is helping our clients in the Southeast Asia region brand themselves and find great candidates. We also have David O'Leary, who is a recruiter, a professional recruiter, who works for LinkedIn and helps recruit the people that help us to build our business here in Asia. We thought that, you can't hear us, can we raise the, yeah. We thought that it would be pretty cool to have a session about the future, the trends of social recruiting, both from a perspective of you who are looking to hire people, and that's what Atul is going to talk about, kind of the trends and how companies are hiring people using social media. And then two, since we're all in the workforce, how can we improve our profiles to be found by people like David? So this is a very open discussion. I want to encourage you to ask questions. You know, so far I hear that we've been very engaging, so we want to keep that up. There's a Twitter wall somewhere as well, I think. Yeah, we'll put that up. Yeah. So, without any further ado, I'll introduce Atul. Atul has some slides to just kick it off. We'll spend about 20 minutes on that, and then David will give his perspective and maybe ask questions throughout. Yeah? Thanks.
Thank you, John. Thanks for opening. While walking in this office, looking at all the photos, my creative juices suddenly started to flow. I thought I'll probably change my slides and stuff, but I don't need slides. But we'll go with what we have done. So there are a few things that for the next 20 minutes or so I would like to go through. It's very high-level overview, and I would pause during for any question and answers, and we also have time towards the end. What I really wanted to talk about today was some of the major high-level trends in recruitment and what we are seeing as LinkedIn as an organization having so many members now, and also some of the data that we gather from third-party sources. Following that, I'll talk a bit about LinkedIn's mission and vision as an organization and what we do for our members, people like you and me, the professionals in the workforce, and what my team eventually does helping recruiters. And then I'll pass it over to David to talk about recruitment specifically. And let me see if this technology is working. Perfect. So I thought I'll start by an image that everyone knows, Steve Jobs, and a quote that he gave back in '94. While I let you read that, what was really that stuck out to me from this quote was the type of people that make a team. And today, talent has become the number one option, number one priority for most CXOs around the world. When we go out and meet organizations, everyone wants to hire and develop the best talent, and that's become a priority for most C-level executives. And that is what Steve Jobs spoke about so articulated it so well. People came from different walks of life, but they were all the best computer scientists at that point of time. And where can you find talent today? And that's a challenge a lot of organizations are facing around the world. As talented individuals, as professionals, what are the best opportunities for us? And where can we find those? And LinkedIn sits at a pretty unique position to address and bridge this gap. And start by showing an infographic. This is based on LinkedIn research, and I will, when I move away from LinkedIn's research, I will refer to that. But this is based on our data. Passive talent versus active talent, and the way the recruitment industry and LinkedIn specifically defines passive talent are people who are not actively looking for jobs. People who are going to their day-to-day jobs and doing what they do best, their day-to-day jobs. Active job seekers are people who are looking for jobs and are visiting the job boards, attending job fairs, visiting career sites, and so on and so forth. And we, based on the data and a few surveys that we ran on LinkedIn, we realized that 79-80%, 4 out of 5 professionals at any time do not look for a job. They are happy doing what they do. They are doing their day-to-day jobs. They are not going around browsing or looking for a change. And this seemed to be pretty true when we look around people around us and talk to our friends. Not everyone is looking for a job all the time. And traditionally and typically, if we flip it back to the topic that we have on hand today, recruitment, it has been very difficult for HR people, for recruitment, talent acquisition folks within an organization to get to the 79-80% of the people. These people are not coming to them. These people are not so easy to reach out. And what are we doing about it? This has been the biggest challenge that we see in the recruitment industry. The survey was also supplemented by some of the research that was done in Singapore by the Singapore Business Review. And unfortunately, the font is not very clear, but I thought since we are in Singapore, it would be interesting to share some statistics around Singapore passive talent specifically, and I'll read it out to you because the font is not very clear. So in Singapore, what this particular survey found was passive talent was not as passive as you may think, which means 86% of Singapore passive talent reported being open to opportunities in some way. So 86% of those 80% are actually open to hearing about opportunities. They are waiting for that tap on the shoulder to what's next for me, or what's the next big option, what's the next big opportunity. Can I do something more than what I'm already doing? And Singapore, of the 10 countries that were surveyed, had the highest ratio of approachable passive talent to super passives. There are super passive people, since John's around, people like me, who super approachable people who had the ratio of 6 to 1 as compared to the super passive. So Singapore, since we have some very interesting statistics, it's not as passive a market as we think it is. So from an HR, if any of you belong to the HR function in the audience today, it is a market where people are approachable and people want to hear, listen to the next big opportunity that can shape their future, that can shape their career. And why passive talent really? All of us have been active talent, active candidates at some point of time, including me. So, I'm not differentiating the two, but again, a survey that was done, now this is LinkedIn data, why passive talent? And based on the feedbacks and some of the surveys that we ran of hiring managers, of leadership within organizations on LinkedIn, we found out that the passive talent has a bigger impact, a larger impact on the organizations as compared to the active talent. These are people who are not actively looking for jobs again, but when given the right opportunity, make a very conscious decision to change roles. The one statistic that really stood out on the top was they are 120% more likely to want to make an impact than the active job seekers. The trends in active job seekers, by no means of generalizing, but an active job seeker looks for a job. There's a reason why they are looking for a job. They find a job, within a year or two they start looking for another job again, and I'm not generalizing this across the 20%, but some of the trends do show significant statistics that support this argument. The passive talent is also more likely to get challenging work and more likely to fit in the corporate culture. 17% less likely to need skill development opportunities, and 21% less likely to need recognition for their contribution. So overall, passive talent, in a nutshell, contributes more back to an organization than active talent. And from an organization standpoint, how do you attract the best passive talent? How do you find the best passive talent? I would go on to say best qualified passive talent. How do you really connect with those masses? And traditionally and typically, there has not been a single platform, a single right way of doing it. We, as companies, we have used job boards, we have used job portals, and we have depended on external third-party agencies to help us network and find the right people for us. And those were the few means that were available a few years back. With the evolution of social media and a platform like LinkedIn, now the opportunities are there, and there's a lot more that we can do. So where does LinkedIn really fit in? And LinkedIn's value in the entire ecosystem is that we help to connect talent with opportunity on a massive scale. And each of these words, each of the three words that I would stress here are talent, people like us, people in the workforce, opportunity, the right job, the right opportunity that may exist for them at any organization and at massive scale. So it's not just Singapore, it's not just the region, it's not one company, it's not a company of particular size, but really all across the world. And how do we do this? Very simply put, our mission is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. And this is what drives us to work every day. We want to be the single the choice of professional network for the professionals. There are other networks out there, and I use all of them for other means, but we want to be the professional network of choice to make the professionals more productive and successful. And how do we do this really? So I'll break it down into two parts really, and it's going to make a whole lot of sense. So LinkedIn has members, people like you and me, and there are three things that we build our business on, build the organization on for our free members, and I'll talk a bit about this, and we will then talk about the enterprise set of solutions that LinkedIn has for our corporate business partners, corporate clients, corporate partners, who then can tap into the members. So as an organization, we want more members, we want to increase our member base, and we want people like you and me to come back to LinkedIn that much more often. And there are three pillars around this. Identity, insights, and everywhere. We allow each and every professional to build an identity, to share and consume the best insights, and do it everywhere. And we'll take a deep dive into each of these. LinkedIn now is your professional profile of record. It allows any professional to have a presence online, share with the rest of the world what they do, where they work, what is their job scope, awards, honors, and all the way up to their educational background. And this is the single most defining feature of LinkedIn. There have been a lot of refinements over the last year, 2012. It was a remarkable year for LinkedIn in terms of how the platform developed, and we changed the look and feel of the network itself. We changed the look and feel of how the profiles look, and we added certain features like skills and endorsements, which allow people to not only put up their skills, but be endorsed by their connections, by the people who they have worked with or worked for in the past. And that has just amplified and accelerated our growth of members. So today, for those of you who have LinkedIn profiles, if you have a 100% complete profile, and if you do a Google search on your name, you would be surprised to see that the LinkedIn profile is the first link that would pop up. And that is something very, very remarkable. So when people search for you on Google, you want to put your best foot forward, and there is nothing better than having a professional profile of record that talks about your career background all the way to career aspirations, and that is LinkedIn. Second part of it, insights, and this is really a development that has happened over the last few years with the rise of social media, and audiences appreciate that, with people sharing more information, not only about themselves, but the places they work at, all the way to food they eat, what they like, what they do not, hotels and so on. Social media, online information has become that much more easy to put up and easy to consume. So there's a lot of insights that are available on LinkedIn, and we have done remarkable changes again along these lines to make that experience richer for any professional. We want LinkedIn to be the single platform for any professional information, any information related to your work life, be LinkedIn for any professional. So every morning when I log into LinkedIn, and I used to do that even before I log into LinkedIn, I would see news in the technology industry in Singapore relevant to my background. I could even see what the news that was going around in my connections and the people that I was connected to based on my network. And that is what LinkedIn does very, very successfully. And over a period of time, we have started refining this now by bringing in things like thought leaders and influencers. So last year, LinkedIn added 150 influencers, thought leaders, who had the ability to post long blogs in a very blog format and share their insights and share their feedback with the broader LinkedIn audience. And we as LinkedIn members had the ability to read this and follow them. And this just again accelerated, and it had unanticipated results for us. Richard Branson, well, this is a slightly old clipping, but Richard Branson has now close to 1 million followers now. So that's how successful it has been. We are now taking this model and adding more thought leaders and influencers. So LinkedIn continues to be the single destination where people go to consume professional insights, be it insights around their work, be it insights around what they do and what would make them more successful. But at the same time, in connecting the dots back to recruitment, it starts becoming the destination where people go to research more about companies, the companies that they would like to work for. They start following those organizations, they start looking for jobs, they start finding and looking for looking people up who they would potentially want to work for, and building knowledge, and it becomes a very easy platform, a place to do so. And lastly, everywhere. We understand our members work everywhere, and this has increasingly become a very, very big thing for us. Last year we noticed 25% of the LinkedIn visits came from mobile platforms. So as compared to 2011, when 12% of our visits were coming from different mobile platforms, it just doubled in 2012, where 25% of the traffic to LinkedIn was through different mobile platforms, be it your iPhones, iPads, Androids, or Windows devices. And the organization has put in a lot of focus to personalize and enrich the mobile experience for each and every user. So if you have used LinkedIn on multiple devices, you would realize that the experience is not the same. An iPad LinkedIn app is significantly different from an iPhone and is different from a web app, and that is intentionally done so. The team has analyzed user behaviors behind the scenes, what people do most frequently on iPads and iPhones, and that's why the apps are designed that way. We continue to make improvements. I personally would say these are not the best LinkedIn apps ever, but we continue to make improvements, and there will be significant changes to the apps in all formats that you will see this year. And again, it becomes a live example, right? I'm on the field, on the ground, meeting people a lot of times, and if I'm going in for a meeting, I now have the ability to use my iPhone or iPad to pull up the profiles of people that I'm meeting, and LinkedIn synchronizes with my Outlook calendar and pulls that up for me and shows me the profile of people that I'm meeting, if I have anything in common with them. And I'm starting to hear from people, friends, colleagues in the industry that they do the same. So LinkedIn then becomes a way of, instead of a cold call, it becomes a warm introduction, and that meeting becomes that much more smoother. So just to summarize everything, the three pillars: identity, insights, and everywhere. And this is what we are doing for our members to increase our member base, and to members to come back that much more often, and to use LinkedIn in a true networking fashion rather than just a job portal or a job board. And where has this brought us today? So by end of 2012 and beginning of 2013, we reached a 200 million member mark, and 200 million seems large for some, seems not so large for others, depends on what you compare it to. But just a year back when I joined LinkedIn last year, this number was 117 million. So beginning of 2012, the number was 117 million. And over a period of 1 year, we added 83 million members, 200 million, the growth nearly of 70-80%, and that's huge. And that is because we are doing identity, insights, and everywhere, all of those three pillars in the right way. A lot of this traffic is coming from APAC, which is now grown to 37 million. It used to be roughly half of that, about 18-19 million a year back. So we have seen rapid adoption in APAC. Across different countries, really. So it is really a pleasure when I talk across APAC and in Singapore specifically to see the adoption of LinkedIn the way it has been. While we are in Singapore, we are nearing 1 million members, 980,000 members in Singapore. And if you look at the size of our population and the number of professionals in Singapore, that is a good 65-70% of the penetration that we have in Singapore. So 65-70% of professionals in Singapore use LinkedIn, and that's a significant statistic. Globally, LinkedIn today has a 200 million member base. We identify the worldwide professional population as 750 million. So we have some way to go there, but we are definitely getting there, and we are building a member base. And if you expand that to the worldwide workforce, that's a 3.3 billion. So still some way to get there, but we have a goal set there, and that is what the network's going to look like. We definitely want to get there, to connect the world's professionals, to make them that much more productive and successful. So I'm going to just pause a little bit here, because I'm going to turn tables around and move into the recruitment side of things, what we do for our organization. So far, I was talking about what we do for our members, people like you and me as individuals, as professionals. And if there are any questions thus far, maybe a quick 1 or 2 questions, and we'll do detailed Q&A towards the end. But take a natural break here, and if there are any thoughts, any Any questions at this stage? We could probably pick one of them. Side note, is it very hot in the room or is it just me?
Very good. Yeah, please state your name.
Hi, my name is Michael Corcoran. Just a quick question about your membership base. I know there are different, you can subscribe and pay to get certain attributes. What's the breakdown between sort of the non-paying members versus the paying members?
Yeah, so this is what we're talking about here is just members, like members in general. We're not talking about subscriptions at all. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact breakdown of number of subscribers, but
I can talk about the corporate clients, which is going to come up in a. I'll repeat the question. Yeah. So if anyone did not hear the question is among the 200 million members that LinkedIn has, what is the breakdown between the paying members versus the non-paying members? Because some LinkedIn members upgrade their accounts for premium subscriptions and so on. The answer is we don't know the answer.
it's posted on the 10K that was
Right.
recent. Yeah.
But 200 million consists of the entire population of the people who have paid and of the people that do not pay as well. In a bit, when we talk about the corporates and the organizations who use LinkedIn for recruitment, we'll see how many organizations are now using us to source talent. And those numbers, yeah, I have those numbers. Any other questions? Otherwise, we're trying to find myself a good position. Yes. All right, we'll keep going. This seems to be better. Sorry, I need to keep moving that. It's all right. I know the slides. So a little bit of background about this, and how did this really evolve? LinkedIn started as a professional network back in 2003. So this may will be our 10 years. And for the first few years of our existence, it was a purely professional network for people to come and connect with each other and do some of the things that we saw and spoke about earlier. We did not have any enterprise solution. But around 2007, a lot of HR people from the human resources talent acquisition fraternity came to LinkedIn and said, we love LinkedIn. We love how you can connect us to people that we could never find, or we had to depend on external parties to do so. But there are limitations and restrictions on the normal LinkedIn platform. We cannot search everyone, we cannot connect with everyone, we cannot message everyone, and so on and so forth. Can you develop something more specific for us? Can you do something for us? And that is when the organization actually put in some thought and came out with, back then it was called Hiring Solutions, was Recruiting Solutions, and most recently rebranded as Talent Solutions, the team that I am part of. And as part of the Talent Solutions team, we work with organizations and businesses, and specifically HR people within businesses, to help them source and attract talent off LinkedIn platform. And there are two very clear parts to it: sourcing talent and attracting talent. And I'll break that down for you. The sourcing talent part is what we call a big shift in recruitment from the post and pray approach to sourcing passive candidates at scale. And imagine that there are 200 million, well, you don't need to imagine, there are 200 million people on LinkedIn, and we have built a tool on top of that called Recruiter. I could not find a better name, but simple does it sometimes. That helps recruitment folks, people like David, to go and source for suitable candidates across the 200 million members that we have globally. And you could put in anything really, and I did not want to put in something specific, but I think someone tried popcorn food scientist, and it popped up 69 results. So there are all types of people on LinkedIn. I often look for sushi chefs, and people ask me to run weird searches, and there are people on LinkedIn that match that criteria. But coming back to recruitment, this is the single most important tool that is changing and is the future of recruitment, now used by about 12,000 plus organizations around the world who are using LinkedIn Recruiter to source passive candidates at scale. So when you build your profiles, you automatically have the ability to be searched, to be sourced by our corporate partners who are using our tools. So this is the sourcing part of source and attract talent. And the second bit around attracting talent. With the emergence of social media, we were talking a bit on this earlier, people have started sharing more information and people have certainly started consuming more information online. People go to companies' pages, people go to company sites, people go to their career pages and career presence and find out more about the company. People want to connect with people who work at that organization, possibly past acquaintances, went to school together, and read testimonials. How is it like to work at a particular company? And that is where we help companies put out their best foot forward, really, put out the best message to attract passive talent. Because these people are already on LinkedIn and they are consuming information in one way or another. So how do we enable companies to put the best word out, and really the recruiters become marketers of the modern world? And that is, in short, the future of recruitment, where a recruiter can go to a passive candidate and market the company like a best salesperson or a marketer in the business would. How do they position their company as an employer of choice, as the place to work at to a candidate, and do it on social media? That is where LinkedIn is helping them do it. We will definitely have time for questions and answers, but David would share a little bit more on how this happens at scale and what he looks for in a candidate when he looks for people for LinkedIn. And if we do have time, I'll show you some live examples of how organizations are doing it, but it's not really all that hard. If you go to LinkedIn and look for any companies and look for their presence on LinkedIn, you would be able to see what we are talking about here. But at this point of time, I'll let David talk about, from his view, what does he look for people and how does he reach out to them being a recruiter at LinkedIn, and then we'll come back to Q&A. Is that all right, John? Or any questions?
Is that good?
Yeah?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Okay, so my name is David O'Leary, and I've been recruiting now for 15 years. Started out in London, then back home, my home country in Ireland, and been out here for just over a year now. So before I start with how social media has influenced my job, I think it's good to sort of backtrack and see how it has affected recruitment in general, really, in the course of my career anyway. When I started first, I was given a desk, a phone, and a notepad. That was it. No computer, no email, no client list, nothing like that. The only way we sourced candidate was putting a 3-word line in the classified ads of newspapers, and then pray you get something back, and screen them and get them in. So we didn't even have a computer. I remember I used to go home with friends and I'd hear them talking about email. I wonder, what is this? Why haven't I got it? I'm missing out on all these jokes that are going around back and forth. So it took years for me, about 2 or 3 years before I even got a computer on my desk. After that, sort of the next big thing in recruitment was job boards. And definitely assisted, still helps today and still is a massive benefit in terms of reaching out to candidates, getting your brand out there, and engaging with candidates. Over the last number of years, really the social media part of recruitment has really taken off. And the 3 areas I want to look at that help me, and why it helps me in my role, are firstly, if we tailor towards LinkedIn, what it's doing straight away is it's putting mass numbers of professionals in one location. These are people that are not job seekers, they're not actively looking for work, but they're giving me a profile of who they are professionally as well. So as a recruiter, if for instance, we're looking for a marketing manager, art director in Singapore who works in IT, who's got 10 years experience, well, we can map out who are the people in this market who hit all that criteria. We can do it through direct sourcing, and I think that's the key thing with social media, that it is about direct sourcing, it is about doing your research, mapping out industries, who's who in companies,
who are you looking for, what skill sets are you looking for, and then trying to engage with these people. And the key thing as a recruiter, is it a sales job or is it a marketing job? I think that you can look at it both ways. Now, working with LinkedIn, I see my role as more of a marketing job. When I was working with agencies, it was probably more of a sales job, because you had to combine both the clients and the candidates. So I think that the three areas with social media where I see the real benefit are the mass number of people, not candidates, because they're not all candidates, in one location that we can direct source, and that we have access to what I mentioned in terms of the passive and active candidates. And for me, this is the passive active candidate is something that I've been talking about now for, it seems, forever. And when I meet with candidates and talk about LinkedIn now, especially for salespeople who are going to sell the product, I think it's important that they see exactly what we mean by active and passive candidates, and how much of a benefit this is to companies who want to recruit. So if we look at just the overlap of what I mentioned about the total workforce of any given area, not everyone is a job seeker. The majority of those are not, obviously. If we look at the active candidates, I think you mentioned, was it 19? I've always rounded it up to around 20%. Now in that 20% as well, you've got people who are great quality, you've got people that are not so great quality, you've got people that are changing industries. So it's even minimizing the target audience you've got even further. So what about the other 80%? Well, you have a top end of that I always say about 15%, that are never going to change, no matter what job you offer them, how much money you offer them, because they're MDs, they're top of their fields, they're close to retirements, they're whatever reason, they're just not going to engage in conversations because they're quite content with their role. But the remaining 65% of whatever are passive, obviously. And these are a massive audience for recruiters to go after. It's not as straightforward as saying, here we got a job, come work for us. It's a case of, engaging with them, finding out what they want, obviously, as well, and seeing if there's a fit there as well. So as a recruiter, that's really the benefit that I see day in, day out from using social media as a recruitment tool. And when I think back to when I started in an office outside of London, above a McDonald's, it's a huge difference in terms of how I actually go about my job on a daily basis now. So, any questions about that first off, just before I move on? Okay, I want to take your silence as we move on. Okay, so how do we go about, and I want to tailor this towards LinkedIn, because I think that's the social media we use from a recruitment perspective. And we use many different methods of recruiting, but the key thing is that we use a targeted approach and get the best fit for the job. So if we look at all of our hires in Singapore over the last, give or take 15 months, it's probably an even mix between direct applications and people we source directly ourselves. So the two of them are quite valuable as well, but it's just about leveraging what tools you've got. So how we work as recruiters in LinkedIn is whenever we get an open rec, we would sit down with the hiring manager and we would spend 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long it takes, to firstly identify what he's looking for. We would do a search on the LinkedIn site. That's the first thing we would do, where we would actually go through, build a search criteria of what we're actually looking for. Who are the people that the hiring manager is going to be interested in? And as a recruiter, it's great for me to have that because it's given me great benchmarks of candidates that we can look at going forwards. So that's the first port of call for us. Then obviously